Hello everyone, welcome to MeroSiksha. I'm Vivechana Sharma and I'm here with the another topic, that is modal verbs. So, do you guys know what modal verb is? What is modal verb? Why this modal verb is used? What is the function of it? So, okay, I heard you somebody saying that it's a helping verb. So, yeah, let us find out what it is. So now, modal verbs are helping verbs. Yes, they are helping verbs, and they work along with the main verbs in order to express certain things of a subject. That is, they are used along with the main verbs. Why we use this with the main verb? In order to express the possibility, to which we call sambhavana in Nepali, and also they are used in order to talk about the ability of a subject. We call that is what we call chamata in Nepali, and also we use modal verbs in order to talk about the permission and the necessity of a subject in order to perform that particular action. So yeah, by this point you guys might have already known that modal verbs can't work independently. They are dependent to the main verb in order to generate the meaning. So yeah, of course, they work together only with the main verb in order to add specific meaning. So these modal verbs, they do not work individually. They need the help of a main verb in order to produce the effective meaning in a sentence or of a sentence. So now the most common modal verbs are can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should. Now let us know more about these modal verbs. So these verbs come before the main verb. As I already mentioned before, these modal verbs only work being together with the main verb. They come before the main verb in a sentence. For example, here is the example. The example reads, the film is really wonderful. You must see it at least once. So here, this you is emphasizing that the film must be watched at least once. The film must be seen at least once. So in order to this subject could have only said that you should you see it once. The film is wonderful. You just see it once. But this you is emphasizing. This you is putting effort. Using the modal verb, it is saying that you must see. It is emphasizing on the action that a subject must perform. So now moving on to the next idea, that is, these modal verbs, they do not change according to the tense. So there is no change in the form. The way we change the forms in the indirect speech, we do not change this modal verbs. So moving on, these modal verbs can also be used in order to create negative sentence as well as the interrogative one. So the idea is we can create negative sentence as well as the interrogative sentence by using these modal verbs. Now let us see the example over here. The first example is about the negative sentence, and this can't is the modal verb. And why we have used this can't? In order to say something that is against. So the statement reads, this can't be Safal's coat. Why this can't be Safal's coat? Because it is too small for him. So if the coat is too small for him, of course that is for sure that the coat can't be his. So moving on to the next one is the example of interrogative one. And the example reads, would you like to stay with us at the weekend? See, here we have also began with the modal verbs would. Now let us know about the functions of these modal verbs. So here let us begin with the first one, that is can. So what is the function of can? So we use can in order to indicate the ability. To talk about the capability of a subject, we use can. For example, if I say that I can play guitar, what I am saying, I am able to play guitar. Similarly, in order to talk about the possibility as well, we use can. For example, can it be true? Imagine that your friend said something to you and you are not much sure about it. So you are questioning, can it be true or not? So now moving on to the next, in order to make permission but quite informal one, we use this can. And also in order to make informal requests, we are supposed to use can. For example, you can borrow that book. So this sentence is indicating permission in an informal way, not the formal one but the informal one. So and moving on, to make a request, we use can I have some water. So moving on to the next modal verb, let us see. This could is the past form of can. This could, so it is for sure that we use could in order to indicate the ability as well. So in order to, it emphasizes on the past ideas. For example, she could speak French, and also it also indicates the possibility. For example, you could become a doctor. That is, if you study hard, you can of course be a doctor. Moving on, we use could in order to make a polite request. If you are to make a request in a polite way, we are supposed to use could. And the example is given over there. So could you please tell me the way to the airport? So now let us move to another one, and another modal verb is may. Again, this modal verb may, it indicates possibility. For example, if we see dark clouds in the sky, so what we assume or what we predict heavy rainfall. What we see after looking after the after the dark cloud in the sky, we assume or we say that there's a possibility of a rain. That is, it may rain today because the sky is quite dark, right? So if the sun is quite bright, we also assume that today is going to be the hottest day. So in this way, may is also used to indicate the possibility. For example, the sky is overcast, and what is it indicating to? It is indicating that it may rain today. Similarly, in order to make a formal request or also to talk about the permission, we use may. For example, you may enter the class. So for example, if we ask our teacher, can we enter into the class? May we get inside? The teacher says, yes, you may. So moving on, we also make a request. In order to make a formal request, we use may. For example, may I take a sheet, or may I have this water? Moving on, this might also indicates possibility. Similarly, this works the way we use may, but this emphasizes the past tense more than that of the other tense. So moving on to the next, that is would. This would, we use would in order to show politeness when requesting. So whenever we are requesting something to happen, in order to present our request in a more polite way, we are supposed to use would. For example, would you like to stay with us at the weekend? We are not asking that you to be there with us in the weekend, but rather we are requesting in a very polite manner for you to stay with us. Would you like to stay? And then we will know the answer of that you as well. So moving on, we use must to indicate a strong obligation. So in order to indicate something that must be performed, that is compulsive to perform, we use must. For example, the student always serves good food. So the restaurant is serving good food to you, and then what you say, they must have employed excellent chef. The only reason behind they serving the good food is they must have employed excellent food. So moving on to the next, in order to get good marks in an examination, you must study. So let us move to the next one, that is should. We use should in order to denote the necessity of an action. So in order to make the subject know that the action that you are planning to do is the must, we use should. And another one, in order to provide the advice as well, we use should. For example, the example is connected to the idea of advice over here, and the example is, the film is really wonderful, you should see it at least once. So the speaker is asking you to see, it is advising to see the film at least once because it's quite wonderful. So now moving on to the last one, that is ought to. We use no, this one is can't. Okay, we use can't in order to talk about something that is against. That is, in order to talk about something negative, we are supposed to use can't. That is, he can't be a doctor. Why he can't be a doctor? Because he has not studied medicine. In order to be a doctor, a person must have studied medicine, is the idea. So in order to talk about something negative, we use can. If you are talking about the ability, but if we are much sure that the person is not able to do the tasks, we use can't. So moving on to the last one for today, that is ought to. So when is ought to used? And this is something we are much confused. So this ought to is used to denote the moral obligation of a subject in order to perform the action. So this indicates a moral obligation, something that has to be performed, and it is connected to the idea of morality. That is, we ought to learn to apologize with people to build trust and cooperation. So in order to build the relationship filled with trust and cooperation, we are supposed to apologize, right? So this ought to is used in order to emphasize the moral obligation of a subject to perform a particular action. So thank you.